Welcome to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here today with Aaron Kancevicius. We're going to welcome Aaron to the show. I'm going to call him Aaron K today.
That's perfect, Debbie. I appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
You're welcome. I mean, it's such an amazing topic, and I know things change. And so Aaron is here. He's with Pinnacle 1031. He's a 1031 expert. And there's so many questions I have. And I also want to tell, even if people think they know how it works, they should always consult a 1031 expert if they are going to do an exchange, because I'm sure rules change all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's always a few little surprises. People kind of think one way about them, and that's what we're here to do is go through the all the details with them, make sure they're not missing anything.
I love it because I've had many meetings with people and I still don't have it down. So that's why we have you. So we're going to introduce
Perfect.
Aaron properly. Aaron is a nationally recognized expert in 1031 exchanges with a 20-year background in real estate finance and consulting. He grew up in Sonora, California, then lived in Hawaii for 9 years before settling into the San Diego County. While in Hawaii, he became a partner in a mortgage company and was recognized as a top trainer at the #1 real estate office in Honolulu. He has assisted hundreds of investors in evaluating their real estate investments and consulted on deals ranging from 100,000 to 100 million. He brings a wealth of knowledge and a client-focused approach to every exchange he facilitates. He regularly educates broker partners, does trainings and is the go-to 1031 consultant for some of the country's largest and most prominent real estate investors and firms, along with their legal, tax, and financial advisors. He is now VP of Business Development and resident 1031 expert with 1031 Specialists, a national 1031 firm that accommodates 1031 exchanges across the country from Hawaii to New York. That's amazing. That is really great. Now, let's go back for a second. When you were in Hawaii, you were there for 9 years. And what led you from Northern California to Hawaii?
Funny story. And I wish I would say I knew exactly what the path was going to be, and there was some amazing thing. We were young, somewhat
Oh,
newlyweds from Santa Cruz, California. I had been in the finance and mortgage business, kind of starting at that point. And when we moved to Hawaii, it was, we had some friends on the Big Island actually we had visited, and it was very unique. And it was a little less expensive than some of the other islands. We had an opportunity. We thought, hey, we're young. Even if we lived in Hawaii for a year, and had to come back,
right.
it would be
Wow.
worth the experience, right? Yeah, we'd be able to try it out. And we ended up staying there. Now, we ended up actually the first 4 years on the Big Island. My wife did, she had to keep flying back and forth to Santa Cruz, missing family, get a little island fever on that island. But we moved to Oahu, and then everything was fine. Yeah, you get a little bit of everything there. A little of the city if you want it. You still got Hawaii. But yeah, that's how we ended up there. It was amazing.
Nice. That's awesome. So, okay. So many of our guests have come to us from different professions to get into real estate. Um, did you start out of college or when did you start your career in 1031 exchanges and what led you into that business?
Sure. Yeah. So actually, as you had mentioned there, I was in mortgages. So I've been in finance for over 20 years. And interesting thing is when I was there in Hawaii, and then I ended up becoming a partner in one of the mortgage companies, is it kind of by default, I would say, just because of the location. But I was working with a lot of the local realtors. We did some first-time home buyers, of course, but most of the business was coming from clients from the mainland, buying their second homes, investment properties, and so forth. And the great thing about that was once they buy one property, as their investment property, they see how it works out. Now they're buying, two, three, four, and five. So they really become quite a loyal, client base. But
Absolutely.
anyways, after coming back here to the or back to California, we're now in San Diego. We kind of look at it as a mix of a nice combination of the Bay Area and Hawaii. You put them together, you have San Diego. That's how we call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so a few years ago, I actually just stumbled across, we had a meetup with a local 1031 exchange company that had set up a mortgage brokerage in the office, but didn't know what to do. Just their idea was, hey, we have all these clients doing 1031 exchanges that need to buy replacement properties. Why aren't we helping them with the loans if they need it? And so I talked to him about that. I came in and actually set up a mortgage brokerage with them. But we discovered it was such a perfect fit from all of my background,
Right.
doing all the financing, understanding the transactions, already pretty much having a grasp on 1031s, although I didn't realize all the details and refinements. It just became this natural fit. I became the lead advisor, and really took off from there.
Wow. And so do you I mean, it's an amazing part of the business. And if you can educate people on the 1031 exchange. And so you work with people all over the country, all most of the time, or sometimes and mostly in San Diego, or what's the breakdown of where you're helping your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. It is all across the country now. Of course, because of my connections now, San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles, throughout California, there is a lot of client base and referral partners. We do have hundreds of referral partners, though, all across the country. We've done a lot. For instance, I'd say in Florida, Texas, the Northeast. We've had a corner there, like a pocket of clients, like New York and New Jersey, that keep coming to us. Of course, Hawaii is an excellent spot for anybody looking for investment properties. And so we've done quite a few there as well.
Awesome. So let's back up a bit and let's break down what is a 1031 exchange.
Sure. Yeah. So the 1031 exchange, it's in the IRS tax code, to be able to provide a means for investment for investors, holding investment properties, to be able to get a new one without paying that tax. So they can sell their investment property without paying all the tax that they normally have on the gain, right, on the sale of property, and then be able to move all of that into the next one, and not have any tax on it. Now there's several rules involved in doing that, but that's what we help to break all that down. But a lot of those taxes can easily add up to 30 to 40% of their gain, and that's some of the education that people just don't realize, right? They usually think it's just 15% of my gains. I'm free. And then we show them, well, it actually could be double or more than that. And we have to break all that down. But the exchange itself, yeah, that's a means that's been 100 years in the tax code. It's not a loophole. You don't have to do anything super funny with it. But it's a means to be able to take maybe an underperforming property and get into any kind of other investment property.
So question, can you go from a single family home into a commercial property?
Excellent question. I'm glad we're starting off with that one because that's one of the top misconceptions that we're hearing all the time. And here's why.
Yeah.
So what people read on it and what the IRS says is it has to be like kind property. Okay. So people get kind of caught up on that thinking, well, I have a single family residence, I got to buy another single family residence and so on. But really, all the IRS is talking about like kind as investment property for another investment property. So the type itself doesn't matter. So you can literally go into any type of property that you're still going to be holding onto as an investment. There's some 16 different types. So even vacant land, that's always considered investment property. If you want to put
Okay.
it into a duplex, you want to put it into an apartment home. If you want to put it into a commercial property, even triple net lease
That's what
properties.
I was asked. If someone wanted to buy a gas station or a Taco Bell or a McDonald's, is that still like kind?
There you go. That's exactly right. That's still like kind. And that's the great part about it, because all of a sudden the investors realize they can start diversifying or consolidating maybe several properties into something like that, right? So yeah, the possibilities are almost limitless. That's all considered like kind because it is real estate. It is for business or investment use, and that qualifies.
I think that was one of the biggest misconceptions that people would get confused was like kind because for years, and I wasn't involved with them that often. I would refer to experts, but I think many people thought it had to go house to house, commercial to commercial. So this is
Mhm.
so great to clarify that like kind is any investment property. So give us one or two examples which is not like kind so people have a visual of that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. I just had an email from a past client. And this kind of helps us understand. So we just did an exchange for him where he sold one property and bought three, and we can discuss kind of some different strategies around that. But So he completed all that. He just emailed saying, "Hey, I want to now sell my primary residence and buy another one." He's like, "I don't want to sell maybe until next summer." And so, hey, if he can turn that into an investment property, right? There's these different strategies, but he wants
Yeah.
to buy this next property right away as his primary residence. Well, there's really no way around that. That's not like kind, because it's not an investment property. So if you were to buy that property and start living on it, the IRS is going to see it. That's where they would do an audit and fail the exchange, and pay the back tax and penalty on it. So that's really the example. Other than that, and there's examples where, hey, sometimes even primary residences, if they might be renting a room or something like that, well, maybe they could exchange part of it. But that's really the main thing. The other part that's not like kind is selling a property here in the United States, in any of the 50 states. It's all eligible because it's all IRS tax rule. But taking a
Oh,
property from here and now
you
wanting to buy a rental property in another country, right? So
can't.
that can't do that. That is not like kind. Now,
Okay.
if the property they're selling is in another country, so it's already a foreign property, and now they're going to buy another foreign property, that actually is like kind. But it's
Oh,
the mix and match that wouldn't work in that case.
so if an American was in Europe and they wanted to buy a place in Italy and then maybe they're going to switch it into France, they could do that.
That's correct. Yeah, that could be 1031 exchange. It's going from a foreign property to another foreign property. Absolutely.
And one of the things that came to mind when I asked that question, I was thinking that you can't sell real estate and then invest in a tech company. That would not be
Oh,
like
correct. Yeah, yeah,
kind.
absolutely. I
Obviously,
always think real estate on my mind, but
yeah.
yeah, because
I just
that
have
is not, well, it's not like kind property. That's not even property, right? So
right.
that's the issue with that. So, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. We do get asked that, maybe trying to buy a company, trying to buy an LLC, trying to buy, stocks, maybe. Yeah, there's some different things. Now, there's some investments similar that might be able to help too that we could talk about. But yeah, going from real estate to non-real estate, that's definitely not like kind.
Okay. I want to go back to your first example because I believe there is a way. So going back to your client who was asked, he's in his primary home and now he wants this other home to be his home. So am I right? And I'll stop after I give you the example and you can elaborate on it. So if Jack is in his primary home and he has some time, so he wants to buy this other property, or he knows that he wants to buy a property down the road, he can turn his primary into a rental. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So now
So
I'll
you'd
let
want
you,
to,
yes, tell us how
yeah, you
that
want
all.
to turn that into a rental and show it, show it on a year of tax return. So if you can make it for a year or at least a year on the tax return, now it shows to the IRS if they ever ask, well, absolutely, this was an investment property. Now, in that situation, they might be able to combine them depending on how much gain they had. They might be able to combine their primary exclusion, and then if there's extra gain, exchange the rest. But yeah, that's absolutely right. If they plan far enough in advance, yeah, they could always make that work.
And so you said 1 year. We always hear 2 years.
That's another great misconception. I'm glad you're hitting on all these.
That's
So
why I was so excited for today.
here's the thing on that. So the IRS doesn't put a timeline. How's that? If you just read the code, it says you're selling a property. Now it has to be quote unquote held, okay, for as investment property to buy another property that's going to be held as an investment property. So they're ruling out, basically flippers, maybe developers, ones that aren't really, their plan isn't to hold, but there's a huge gray area with that, and it really comes down to intent. So
Right.
what some CPAs might tell their clients, it all depends on your CPA. Some might say, hey,
Right.
let's just be sure. We want to make
Right.
this very clear. It's an investment property. Let's hold it for 1 year or let's hold it for 2 years. But again, there's nothing stating that at all. And I've had many clients sell before they've even had it for 1 year,
Wow.
because they feel very, either that they were actually renting it, but now found another property, or some perhaps bought a property and they were renovating it to rent out, but then they're having trouble getting it rented. They just realized it wasn't the investment property they thought it was going to be. And they felt strongly, hey, if the IRS ever comes back and asks, can you show intent? This was our intention, was to buy and hold it, but hey, we found this other property and it's going to work out best for us. Absolutely.
Right.
By all means, do an exchange on that.
So why has that always been such a bone of contention? Like, I mean, if it doesn't say, why do different CPAs have different, yes, you should hold it for 2 years or just over a year? Why is that out there like that? Why is it so
Yeah,
different?
it's such a gray area, and that's exactly why I'm out there talking about this. Um, because the CPA is kind of putting themselves on the line. I kind of compare it to, what if that same CPA is preparing all their business expenses, and now they have like this one business expense, whether it's their car or their phone, and they're saying, can I write this off? Some will say yes, by all means, let's just push it, let's really push the envelope. Others will
Right.
say no, let's hold back and be safe. So that's really the difference there. And I repeat this again, there is not any specification in the IRS code saying there's a specific amount of time. And that's what's created this confusion. But when
Awesome.
we look back and look at all the rulings, there's been private letter rulings and things, and when certain cases come up, and that's been
Mhm.
proven. It's been the intent. So here's an example too, where if somebody truly was wanting to buy and remodel and flip the house,
Okay.
and perhaps they had a buyer already lined up. Well, guess what? There's no way they're going to prove intent that they were going to try to hold that property as an investment. Here's another
And then,
issue where 2 years could come up, and it can
uh-huh.
cause some issues. Is if it's a related party transaction.
Right.
So as
That's the
soon as you're selling to a related party or buying from a related party, we got to really talk about the specifics and see what the IRS might say. There's some where they'll just say nope, can't do it at all. There's other times where if both sides are a related party, they will say it's okay, but both have to hold it for 2 years. So I do oftentimes realize that can easily be confused. That is the time where there is a specific amount of time. It is 2 years. But in a general regular exchange where you're just selling your property, buying your next one, that does not apply.
So you were saying that, so because what they call this to our viewers, it's called arm's length, correct? An
Correct.
arm's an arm's length transaction. So how are they? How it's not arm's length? So how are you? So you're saying they have to hold the property for 2 years, and that makes it arm's length? I don't. Can you go over that one more
So
time?
somehow, what the IRS is concerned about is they're always worried about somebody trying to do something funny with the tax basis and shifting the
Mhm.
tax basis and getting away from tax that they really should be paying. So they're always leery of somebody doing a transaction with their own family, because usually there's it could be a special deal that they're getting somehow, and they're worried that they're just getting out of the tax that they should be paying. Now, um, again, I'm not. We have a CPA on staff that's one of the founders. I'm not a CPA. I don't get into why the IRS says this stuff, but
Right.
but that is one of their issues that they're concerned about. It's the same like with mortgage loans. When there's a non-arm's length transaction, they scrutinize it more. So that's what it is. The IRS is going to scrutinize it more, and they feel that if both properties hold it for 2 years, then there wasn't shenanigans going on. There wasn't manipulation of the tax basis going on.
Right, right. Okay. So interesting. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back with Aaron K., our 1031 expert. Thank you. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Aaron K. He's out of San Diego, but he works the entire country. And if you happen to be buying property abroad, he can help you there too, and make sure you don't get in any trouble when you're trying to orchestrate your 1031 exchange. So, Aaron, walk us through the steps of a 1031, and then we're going to talk about how real estate agents can get more business and more listings and help their clients.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good foundation to have. So, uh, a 1031 exchange is not going to really dramatically alter or change the sale of a property. First of all, and some get worried about that it's going to hang up their sale. It's just the sale goes on like any other sale. It's just in the middle of it, there has to be what's called a qualified intermediary or a 1031 accommodator. That's us, 1031 specialists. We're the ones that set up the exchange paperwork. We have some instructions for escrow. There's just a couple things that have to be done at closing. And this has to be set up. It is a key that it has to be set up before they actually close on that property. Okay. Now, when that
And
property closes,
how much time? What's the time frame on that?
sure. And then
Like,
that comes next. Yeah. So we'd have to set, so once somebody's under contract, or even if they're listing a property, they can call us. We like to kind of go over everything, ahead of time, strategize. But then they get everything set up beforehand. Now the exchange hasn't started yet until they actually close on that property. So the time frame is at that point they've got a total of 180 days to complete their repurchase or repurchases. Okay, so 180 days, 6 months to close. But now here's a key: the first 45 days of that is the identification time period. So by day 45, they literally need to turn in a list if they haven't already, bought something. Turn in a list of potential properties and their approximate values, and then within the rest of the 180 days, they have to close on something on that list. So
okay,
that's
got
the
to ask
total time frame.
a
Mhm.
question. Sorry, I'd interrupt you with your flow. But so,
Sure.
okay, right now our market's not the best, but often we've had for 30 years, our market's been pretty moving pretty quickly with multiple offers on properties. So what happens in a hot market? We give you 5 homes that we want to make offers on. And what if we don't win any of those deals?
Right. Yeah. So it does take a lot more planning right now. And that is one of the things that investors kind of worry about a little bit. So what we're telling everybody is first we lay all this out and we help them to realize as soon as your property that you're selling is on the market or under contract, right? You're gonna have 30 days or however long the escrow is. You should already be, searching, doing your due diligence, perhaps writing offers on possible replacement properties. And you have a great realtor working with you. They can be hot listing you, a few different lists. But you have all that time that you're, waiting for your property to close. And then you have another 45 days from the day that it closes to actually turn in that list.
Okay.
Now, technically, after that 45th day, if somebody's trying to buy something that's on that list, yeah, that's going to cause a red flag to the IRS, and that's going to, cause them to fail the exchange. So it does have to be firm. And that day 45, unfortunately, whether it falls on a Sunday, holiday, or whatever, it doesn't matter. They do have to turn in that list by that day.
And so that was 30 plus 45 days. Is that right?
Right. So you have however long your escrow is for the close of your property.
Okay.
Okay. So you'd be
So if
using
that
that time
was
wisely.
that could be a 60-day close on your property and another 45 on top of that.
That's
So
exactly it. That's
just
exactly it. The clock doesn't, yeah, it's kind of like a race. Like the gun doesn't go off until you've actually closed on that sale property. That's for a standard exchange. Now, not to throw us too far off base, but here's another way of flipping that around. If somebody finds, and if they don't want to worry about that 45-day period,
right.
they're feeling too much stress, and they find a perfect replacement property ahead of time, well, they can buy that property first, and that's called a reverse 1031 exchange.
Just going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. So perfect. So they buy it. Now the gun goes off. The clock starts ticking the day they close on the purchase. And now they got the whole 180 days to sell their property. And then when they sell that, then it's tax free. But they've already bought the replacement property. So it eliminates that whole 45-day struggle.
Okay. So let's talk about the reverse exchange. So I buy a piece of property. I buy a piece of property. I close on it. or no?
Correct.
I
Yes,
buy,
on a
I,
reverse exchange. Yes, on a
or the
reverse, you would close on
reverse,
it first.
I close on it, and now do I open not
Ah,
escrow with you, but do I, am I in touch with you
sure.
prior to that, or when am I in
Yes.
touch with you? And let's walk through the steps of that
Sure. Yeah, let me
reverse.
walk you through that again. Yeah, so I should clarify. Yeah, either way, whether you're doing a standard or a reverse, definitely need to be in touch with me first.
Okay.
Even more so with a reverse exchange because there is a lot more setup. What happens with that is the IRS says you actually can't be holding title to both properties at the same time. So that's where again we come in as the 1031 accommodator is setting up a basically an entity that parks that property in the meantime. You still own it, you do everything with it, but it parks the property, and then now you have 180 days to sell, and then that completes the exchange. So definitely, no matter what, you want to get a hold of me, before anything closes. And unfortunately, I get a lot of calls, and it hurts me every time. They're
Oh, I'm
thinking
sure.
that they sold a property 2 months ago. They think they have 180 days, and they call us to do an exchange, but it wasn't set up.
Right.
Yeah. What happens in that case is the reason for that is the IRS does not want you as a real estate investor having constructive receipt of the funds. So if escrow closes and they send you the funds and you touch them, it hits your bank account, you're going to get taxed. So that's
Right.
part of the rules. And while we're here as a qualified intermediary, is the funds have to come to us. We hold them, we put them in a secure bank account. We do a qualified escrow agreement with it so that we can't move it without your permission. And then you authorize the transaction to close on your purchase property. But that's why we're here. It all has to be set up before anything is closed.
And that's a standard, not a reverse. That's a standard 1031 you were just speaking about.
That would be a standard where we're actually holding the funds, correct?
Right. So on a
But
reverse
either way, we have to have everything set up before even you
so
close
on
on
a
a
reverse
reverse.
exchange, you're closing on the house. Is but is title in my name or is title in the 1031 exchange? We're
In
closing.
that case, it's going to be held in the entity that the 1031 exchange sets up. There's a whole lot of other paperwork that's being set up, including a lease, all this kind of thing. That makes you still the owner. Basically, you can still have the right to rent it, do what you want with it.
Okay.
But
You
for
can
the
still
eyes of
rent
the
it out.
IRS, just technically for the title has to be quote unquote parked, and it's with an exchange accommodation title holder arrangement.
Okay. So now, before I go on to how we can help real estate agents get more business by facilitating 1031 exchanges, I want to ask what my father has always done 1031 exchanges, but he will not do a reverse exchange. So, what are some issues? For not saying that they didn't set up with you in the beginning, but what are some issues that someone bought it, set up with you properly, bought a piece of property, and what issues could happen or have happened with a reverse exchange?
Yeah, it's still fully it's within the IRS, so it's completely there's no issue with it. The difference being because of that whole structure and what's happening with it, there's a lot more work and cost involved to do it. Okay, and what happens is if you buy the property, you've spent the money now on getting everything set up, and now your property doesn't sell. Well, it's not really a big deal. You don't have a tax event, right? Because you didn't sell a property. You just now you own another one, and you paid extra because of the whole setup for the reverse exchange arrangement. That's really the difference. So the standard exchange is by far the simplest way to go. It's 90% of our exchanges. It's just a matter of timing, though. For those that do find that perfect replacement property and want to snatch it up and not risk it, that's what the reverse is there for.
Okay. And what does it cost? What is your fee?
Yeah, so with the standard exchange, ours is very transparent and simple. It's just 1,195, so basically $1,200. But that covers everything. We're not going to charge you again when you buy another property, even if you buy two, three, four, five properties, no additional charge whatsoever. If you
That's
want to do a
amazing.
back-to-back close, so you're going to close on your sale and turn around and close on your purchase the next day, we're not going to charge you an extra fee. So there's been a lot of old ways of doing this space that 1031 specialist is clearing up. And here's the other thing too, is we give a price guarantee. So if for whatever reason you don't complete your exchange, so you don't buy a replacement property, you decide not to exchange, we'll even just give you the whole fee back.
Wow.
And so that's
That's
something
amazing.
that's not seen in the space either. So it helps people with the that peace of mind if they're not sure what they're going to buy, they're not sure if they really should buy another property. We call it,
Right.
hey, it's like capital gains insurance. Think of it like that. You set
Right.
it up because if it's not set up before you close, you don't even have a chance. So let's just set it up. Our fee comes out of the proceeds. You don't pay us anything when you first set it up. But if you don't exchange, we'll just give it all back to you anyway. So you don't even have to worry.
I love it. I never really knew what people charged. I would just refer them over to the expert, the
Oh,
1031 expert.
sure.
This is
Yeah,
so
you'll see different ranges on that, of course. Maybe 1,000 to 2,000. We're not the cheapest. We're not definitely not the most expensive, but by far the expertise, the customer service, but the price guarantee as well. Hey, we'll give it all back, and no additional fees on top of it. It's really
yeah,
basic. So for somebody saving tens to hundreds of thousands on their tax bill, yeah, doing the
no,
1031 exchange is it's not a cost barrier, whatever.
no, not at all. My God, I think it's great. So let's jump to a commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about how you can help real estate agents get more listings. We'll be right
Great.
back. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Aaron Kay. He is our 1031 expert. I have to say and compliment you, Aaron. In the short time we've been speaking, and I've been talking with my family for years on 1031s, and my father's been, I can't do it that way, I have to do it this way. How, it's he's very he wants to make sure he doesn't mess it up because he's been doing this for years. But you are explaining things so concisely, and although the IRS is can be very vague, I guess, it's you're really doing a great job of explaining these 1031s and how they work. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate hearing that too, because that's the way I see the need is within this space. Yeah, is clarity needs to be brought, and it needs to be spoken in a way that in terms that we understand, right?
Right.
That we're not tax experts, so just tell me what it is and how I can apply it. So I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. So now let's talk about how real estate agents could get more listings by educating their clients about 1031 exchanges.
Sure. Yeah, I love this part, and I do whole webinar trainings on this for real estate offices across the country. Let me start first. There was one other part of how to completely defer taxes that's part of an exchange is if somebody wants to defer 100% of their taxes, they need to buy property that's equal or greater value than what they sold. Okay, so if they sell for a million, they got to buy for a million. Of course, they can subtract out of their costs of selling, like commissions, title, and escrow. And so there's a couple things when real estate agents are talking with their clients. You're usually having your upfront discussions with them, talking about their goals and so forth. And I mean, especially having a listing appointment. This is just from what I hear. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, and I understand because realtors have so much on their plate. There's so much they're talking about marketing. They're trying to get them the top dollar and everything. So, so they're thinking, well, hey, we bought this property for a million. We can sell for 2 million. That's awesome. You're doing a great work for them. But wait a minute. How many agents are bringing up to them? Okay, now when we do this, you're going to have $1 million gain. You're going to have to pay the tax person next year about $300,000 to $400,000 on your tax. What's our plan for that? Now, once you bring that up as a realtor, nobody else is doing that. It's going to help you win that listing. But there's a lot of reasons why you should at least be bringing it up. And you don't have to feel that you're a tax expert, anything else. That's what we're here for, is to back you up. But we just want you to feel confident to at least bring it up. Okay. So, first of all, the person might be surprised because so many people just think they're going to pay 15% capital gains on their gain. That's very common. I hear that all the time. And so they're surprised, right? What are you telling me, 300 to 400,000? Well, capital gains, you have federal, which can be 15 to 20%, first of all, depending on their tax bracket. You have state capital gains tax. Here in California, it's the highest, it's 13.3%. One that everybody forgets about is depreciation recapture. So 25% of all the depreciation they've been writing off gets recaptured when they sell. There's also net investment tax if they're in a certain tax bracket. So easily the whole tax can come to 30 to 40%. Okay. So first of all, just helping the person get thinking about that is a big help. Now, that usually leads to, again, some of the misconceptions we've talked about. So with the realtors just being armed a little bit, one of the misconceptions, well, but I'm selling this, single family for 2 million. I don't want to buy another one for 2 million. Great. You don't have to. There's a whole world of different property types that you can buy so that you don't pay that huge tax bill. You can also take that one property. You can chop it up into several different little properties. We have clients doing that all the time, especially here in California, taking all their equity, selling one, buying 5 different properties in other places, or just different types of properties, right? The other thing is they might think it's an all or nothing proposition. Well, I don't want to buy a $2 million property, right? I'm trying to simplify a little bit. It's like, okay, great. Well, what if instead of paying 300,000 or 400,000 to the IRS next year, because you're going to have to write a check, and that hurts, and it's going to be a year later. What if we cut that in half? Why don't we just buy you a property for 1.5, perhaps? At least we're using half of your gain. And perhaps depending on their loan situation, maybe that's more, now it's a mortgage-free transaction. You won't even have a mortgage. But you're at least, you're going to save yourself 200,000 in the process. And now all of these, again, doesn't require the agent to be the quote unquote, tax expert. It's just making them aware that there are these different possibilities, because they can even help their client. Like, there's a lot of financial planners that will use the example of, once you've lost, profit, like let's say in the market, you're never getting that back, right? If you have $100,000 invested in the stock market and you lose 50% one year, you're down to 50. If you gain 50% next year, you're not back to where you started. You're only at 75,000, and you could have been at 150. You're only at half of where you should be. It's the exact same thing with paying the IRS. They're getting nothing out of it.
So when you're talking about this house example of the 1 million to the 2 million, this is not a primary residence. This is a rental property we're talking about, correct?
Yeah, they can always double check. If it's a rental property, not a primary residence, exactly. Unless part of the primary residence, there might have been some rental activity going on. Okay. So at least a portion of it. Yeah. Now some have maybe some, large property, and they've been renting part of the yard, or maybe they've been renting a room or two. Maybe they have a home office. So things like that, they would just be that portion, but then they'd be doing that. Other than that, it'd be an investment property. A lot of people are selling, perhaps it's a trust sale. Perhaps, so these different reasons why they might be selling an investment property. And you'd be surprised how many just regular real estate investors, maybe it was their very first property that they had as an investment, have never heard of a 1031, whatsoever. So our goal is just to help arm, agents better with it, and help them to understand that it's not going to mess up your transaction. Because I fully get it. You have a lot on your plate. You're very excited that you got the listing, or that you're going for the listing presentation. Yeah. We want to get this done. We want to make the sale go through. But these are just 1 or 2 extra questions is all. And then you can be assured that getting it set up, making it happen, is not going to delay your sale. It's not going to cause any extra stress, but you're going to be helping your agent or your client in a way that nobody else is. Now, that's that. Now, the other part of it is, if they're not bringing it up, we talked about the timeline. So if somebody's doing an exchange, they're under the gun to buy their next property. So by not bringing it up or not fully vetting out all the possibilities, you very well could be losing, obviously the replacement property. So there's that part of it. The other part is ongoing. Once you've done one of these for a client, is I was talking about my background with investors from Hawaii and so forth all through the years. Once you've done one of these, it's a very niche type of thing. And they're going to view you as the investment expert now, the 1031 expert. And investors don't, the average properties, like a first time buyer, what do they resell every 7 years? I heard now it might be 9 to 10 years.
Yes.
Guess what? Investors don't do that for the most part. There's some, but they might buy, they like that first property. Now they're buying their second one. Now they're buying their third one. Now their fourth one. And then guess what? They're exchanging those all the time. So in this market, like where we're at in San Diego, I just saw the stat that 25% of all real estate transactions in San Diego are investment properties.
Wow.
So in this market that's stuck right now, guess what? Investors are still out there transacting because even though the rates are still high, they need to keep their properties and their cash flow moving. And so once you do one of these with the client, you're suddenly going to be this expert to them. And guess what? A ton of referrals because
Right.
they know other investors. And when they're selling, they're going to be asking about 1031 and they'll say, hey, my agent, handled that for me. It's amazing once you do one and then you go through the years, you're going to have all this repeat referral business coming
I
back.
love it. So what I'm going to ask you to do for me is if you could, so I send marketing letters to educate homeowners about whatever it is or to provide information. So I would love for you to give me content for, well, two things. One, I write for Piedmont Living magazine, and then I also have a blog. So doing a write up targeting investors that I can send out to investors in my community. And I know, like San Diego, I know LA, I also work in LA as well. And I know LA has a ton of investors.
Right.
There's a lot of rental properties in Los Angeles. So I would love to get a letter from you that I can send out and we can co-brand it.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And those are the kind of ideas we can be thinking of is, yeah, look
Yeah,
for, whether it's databases of non-owner occupied properties, whether it's, matching up with property managers. Now, of course, there's a lot of property management companies that sell real estate too, but then there's a lot that don't.
right.
Yeah, so it's just unearthing these different areas where investors might be for sure.
Yeah. I do have a question. So we have a single family home that I've been renting for them for probably over 10 years. So now it's on the market and I don't know if this is possible, but so it's on the market and there are three sets of heirs. So what if the single person who's my good friend, if she wants to take her portion, her mother has passed, so it's now in a trust and they're going to each get their share of cash. Could one of the parties take it and turn that into flip it into a 1031 exchange and invest their money?
Yeah, that gets a little tricky. And that's one of the issues why we can talk for a long time with different examples. With the title, what you have to have is it's called continuity of taxpayer within the 1031 exchange. So if it's being held by a trust, um, and the trust does its own taxes, right? So then the
Mhm.
trust is really the taxpayer. That's the one that'd be the exchanging. But then there's ways of, well, what if we exchange and then distribute the trust? So there's different things like that. But up front, that takes a little more planning, right? How best, to handle that. It comes up a lot too with LLCs. If it's a multi-member LLC, right? And now they
Mhm.
want to sell and distribute and go two or three different ways. Well, in that situation, the LLC is the taxpayer as well. So if they plan it ahead of time, they could dissolve it and all go in as tenants in common interest, right? And now they can definitely sell their shares and go
So you
separately.
would dissolve it before the sale, before like we're on the
In
market.
that case, with the LLC, yeah, in that case, they would have to. Otherwise, once that LLC sells, the LLC is the taxpayer. They definitely have to. Now they could buy it in an LLC and then drop everybody out. That takes a little more behind the scenes planning and preparation with them and their tax team.
Okay, but it's possible. So it's possible that because we work with a lot of clients who families who the money is
Right.
going to go. So it is, so on that, not the LLC, but on the trust, it is possible.
Yeah. So again, it'll take some planning is how we'd want to do that. And it would take having your tax team involved a little bit. But
Hmm.
um, but usually in that case, buying something else, or maybe even buying separate properties, but being within the trust, like for what those different ones want to do, and then distributing out the shares or distributing out the trust.
Oh,
Um, but that takes, again, we want to make sure we have your tax team, involved with the whole situation.
absolutely. No, I'm not sure if it's of interest to them, but we do work with a lot of trusts, so trustees. So it seems like it would be a nice option instead of them just paying taxes and but taking their money and putting it somewhere. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with Aaron K. And I want to talk about your webinars and anything else you want to share with us. And we have a few more questions, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Aaron K. He is the 1031 expert. I will say the 1031 expert. I've learned
Thank
so
you.
much, and you've actually clarified a lot. I had the right questions, and I knew there were basics, but you really clarified a lot of things. So
Thank you.
let's talk about swap till you drop.
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, kind of corny, but it's true, right? So one of the questions I get quite a bit is, well, if if I'm selling this property, do a 1031, you are deferring the tax, and so people are worried about, well, I'm going to have to pay the tax at some point, right? When do I pay the tax? So the swap till you drop just means, well, the only time you trigger a tax bill is when you sell a property. So if you swap it, so if you do a 1031 exchange each time, you're never paying the tax. Now, what happens is you make that part of your overall estate plan and so forth, so that when you pass away, your heirs are going to receive that property, but they receive it at the stepped up basis, what's called the stepped up value. So now that day that they inherit it, it's at the current value. So guess what? All that appreciation that you had been swapping during your lifetime is gone. They don't have to pay it. It's only now appreciation from the day that they actually own it and going forward. And so, the taxes are deferred. So if you sell one property, let's say in California, that's 13% here in this state, and you take it to Florida and it's zero, and then you sell that property there without exchanging, yes, you're going to pay the back tax. But as long as you keep exchanging it. Now, there's some ways of getting some cash. I get that. That's the next question. Well, how do I ever get my cash out?
Right.
But
Good. I love that. Yes.
yeah. And so there's a couple things. I'll just touch on that briefly here. Is if you do need cash out, usually when somebody says they need cash out, they want to cash out their property. I ask, again, this is great for an agent, a realtor to ask, well, how much are we talking? I mean, they might say, well, I need 100,000 cash. Maybe they want to pay off some bills or do something else. Well, okay, if that's the case, why are we going to pay the IRS 200,000 total tax just to get your 100,000? One option is you can just pull that 100,000 out of the sale, and that's called boot, and that's cash boot by the IRS. You only pay tax on that portion. Okay, set that
Oh,
aside. Now exchange the rest. So that's one thing. Or Why don't you just exchange all of it, put it into your next property, then pull your cash out of it? Okay, now you have a cash out loan, which loan proceeds aren't taxed. Now you have tax free money at that point. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's just again, it's helping agents kind of arm them with the right questions to ask. So just take one, comment by the client because again, they don't know, they have misconceptions as well. Just ask those
Right.
questions and you get to the root of it.
Most of them just don't want to touch on it at all. Because it's not typically what we know so well, unless there's specialists in it. So,
Yeah,
so tell us about your webinars. You said you give webinars. Tell us about that. I'm definitely going to have you come speak to our agents.
absolutely. I appreciate that. So basically, everything we've been talking about, I've put it into webinar training format with slides, and it's not just reading what the IRS codes are.
Right.
Just very structured, simplified ways. First of all, just explain the basics so that everybody's on the same page. Some of the things that we spoke of, going over what an exchange is, your timelines, your replacement value needs, things like that. And then going through these sample ideas to help again better equip agents to be when they're out there to be talking and knowing that we're there as their backup. They just have to get that conversation going and started. As well on those, we give links to you talked about education content, which
Mm-hmm.
1031 specialists, yeah, we definitely believe in that. We have a whole bunch of content. We have links to the 1031 Bible, to a calculator, the exchange calculator. It's the ultimate one where somebody can kind of see it all on a spreadsheet for those type of clients that you might
Wow.
have. Yeah, it's already built in. We have this amazing AI chatbot fully trained on 1031 exchanges. It
That's
was
amazing.
literally fed over 8,000 pages of IRS regulations, all the private letter rulings. And
Wow.
I'd
That's
invite any agents, to go in there. They can, put it in there on the website. They can email it if they want. Yeah, email it any question. And we'd say, hey, you'll get an answer in under 10.31 seconds on your situation. Yeah,
that's
it's
incredible.
amazing. So with the webinar, that's what we do. We go into real estate offices. They might have 100 agents, maybe 20 are there at the for the webinar. But then we share all the content with everybody else in the office. But we take live questions like we're doing now. Hey, we can take as long as we want, making sure everybody's questions are answered. And then they have their access to me. Then all the time, there's a link to schedule free consultations. I do three-way calls or meetings online with agents and their clients, whatever is needed.
Right.
Even if a client or an agent just has a possible deal they're thinking about, and just generally wants to know, by all means, just reach out to me. Email or call or schedule something. But that's what the webinars are for. It's to have more of this in a one-on-one setting with offices, and then to be able to have an ongoing dialogue with them.
And everyone always has questions, so it's nice
Always.
to be interactive like this. Yeah, it's super helpful. So and I definitely have, and you work in New York, as you said. So
Yes.
I'm in a mastermind. There's two things I want to offer you. I'm three things. I'm in a mastermind with a group of agents, and I'd love to have you come speak to our mastermind. It's a really great network of agents,
Mhm.
and we meet once a month on a Thursday, and it would be great to have you come speak to our mastermind. And in that mastermind, I met a girl from Tiffany out of New York, and she's really focusing on investors.
Mm.
And so I'm going to I'm going to connect you with Tiffany. And so when I think of New York too, I think of co-ops. Any issue with 1031 exchanges and co-ops?
That's the good news. I've had it come up, and so I have my own cheat sheet on here. We can put it through the AI, but co-ops are fine. Yeah. So if they're just
Okay.
selling and going to buy another, so it's a co-op that they've been renting out, right? It's an investment
Yeah.
property, and they're going to
Mhm.
sell another one. I do remember that from the one time it's come up that it was eligible. So yes, that can be done.
Okay, yeah, it always throws me. New York is so different than how we work here in California. But so I'll definitely refer you to her as well, and then of course have you come speak at our office, and then have you speak to my clients and see if we can get some more clients selling and saving some money. So let's go to a fun topic. So, what's your morning routine like? Do you have a morning routine?
Oh boy, yeah. The dreaded mornings, huh? So, yeah, I've changed this a little through the years. Yeah, I used to kind of dread them and wake up with a bunch of stress, and you were just worried about all the deals are going on or what's not going right. And so I, we kind of learned this through a friend of ours that's a doctor and really teaches a lot of things about how our minds work and the subconscious and all that kind of thing. Some people might call it mindfulness, but I've learned that when you get up in the morning, I've got to just start focusing right on gratitude. All
Yeah.
the things that I appreciate about the morning, all the things I'm going to be looking forward to. For me, that means taking a little time to, have my, morning coffee, but then really appreciate it. Some people call it mindfulness, but it's
Mhm.
thinking like this is just so amazing. Think about how our brains actually work in the way, why our subconscious is throwing us crazy thoughts and ideas. Well, because it thinks it's doing the right thing. We have to appreciate that. To get
Yeah.
outside. So this morning, outside, cold air, but sun. It's just wonderful. It gets your brain in the right spot. It gets my brain in the right spot, anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I can do exercise, even better. I used to do it more, especially in the younger days. But now, even if I get out there for 20, 25-minute run,
Yeah.
it clears the cobwebs, right? If you
Yeah.
let too much of the anxiety and things of the day to day build up, I got to go and sweep all the cobwebs out of there. And to me, exercise does that. And then it gets your brain ready so that when I sit down and start working, get those gamma brain waves working, and that's the time to really take action.
Absolutely. No, it's very interesting. Of my 37 or 38 guests I've had so far, everyone but one person has a morning routine. Everyone is gratitude and affirmations and working out and some quiet time and getting up early. And one guy said, "Oh, I'm not a morning person. I don't get up till later." And that was it. I'm like,
You got to
okay.
figure
And
what
then he's
works
right
best.
to
Yeah.
email. And then he's right to email. I'm like, oh no, you need a morning routine.
Yes.
So uh, how could people get a hold of you? And any final words you want to share with us? Oh, and one question before that. We have a few more minutes. We'll go over. How do you keep organized? Do you have apps that you use, or websites, or a calendar, or some kind of, how do you keep organized in your business?
Excellent. So as a company, we use HubSpot. Okay, so I've used HubSpot before. I've used Salesforce, but anything that is you customized for exactly what you need. So it keeps track of everything. Clients, ones I've talked to, referral partners, even transactions. As we have exchanges going on. So HubSpot for sure, and then the day to day HubSpot and my email are linked or connected together. And so if I email somebody from either way, I'm going to see it on either end, and then that all goes into the calendar through our base, our workspace is the Gmail calendar and so forth, and then have all the same thing that links through the computer onto the phone. So those are really the main things. And then as a company, we have our own for different files, Dropbox that we can all access for whether it's the marketing, whatever it is.
Right.
We have everything structured like that. So those are the main things. Keeps it all nice and structured and organized for everybody.
Yeah. There's so many tools. It's amazing. I
It
love to hear.
is.
It's just,
Yeah. It's hard to
um,
keep up with them all, right? So I'm always afraid of missing out on something, right? The
right.
FOMO,
You're,
like,
you're downloading. It's like, oh, let me try this app. Let me try this app. And then you're like, okay, I don't even know what I downloaded. And then you don't use it. And you're like, what is that? I know.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Then you can't find things. Yeah, you're sliding through about 20 different pages on your phone trying to find the app. Yeah, I'm the same
absolutely.
way. So I just try to simplify it as much as possible. Trial and error with a few things, but I've kind of boiled it down to if I can just have a couple good programs. Like, as long as my calendar I can see easily on everything, and then if that's
Right.
connected to my CRM, then that's perfect.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this has been so informative. How can we help you? How can I help you? And how can we get in touch with you? Um, share that
Sure.
with us. And
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, you've helped me a lot inviting me in. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, so email is always easy, of course. Aaron at 1031specialist.com. Aaron is double A, one
mhm.
R, so AARON, at 1031specialist.com. Specialist is plural. So you can tell I missed a few
Specialist.
emails.
Yeah.
Specialists, yes. So
Okay.
that's the easiest way you can always reach me. LinkedIn, of course, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Our website, 1031specialist.com. Our toll free line, you can even call me if you like, 631-438-1031. So it's 631 get 1031.
Oh, I love it.
Feel free to, yeah. I'm always willing to talk to people about the subject, obviously, because again, first of all, I realize, most just aren't either aware of it or just have completely different. Everybody I talk to has different ideas of how it's supposed to work.
Yeah,
So I love
absolutely.
clarifying, like we've been doing. Never hesitate to throw out an email, to schedule a time on my calendar if you like. I really appreciate it. And then again, the webinars that I have a series of those. I have 2 next week. I'm already scheduling out some in January. But I'm always looking forward to talking about this within the real estate offices again, just to help them as much as possible, and
Right.
maybe to open their eyes to some new ideas.
Perfect. Well, as soon as we get off, I'm going to email you with my office and my mastermind group, and we will get you set up and get on your calendar. This was
Excellent. I
so
appreciate
fun.
it.
It was like, at first I thought, oh, it's 10:31. It's going to be boring, but it was not boring. I hope people enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I have now I'm going to go after investors and try to educate them. I mean, a lot of them, I would assume a lot of them already are doing their 1031s, but some people might just be kind of mom and pop and not, buy one building and then kind of that's all they thought about doing. And also, a way for them uh, to stay in the family, to give to their children
That's
can
right.
inherit and
That's
continue
right.
on.
It's that. And one thing I forgot too is, hey, maybe they're getting to a point now where they want to start thinking of buying their retirement dream home, and they can consolidate several properties, buy that dream home. Here's a 2-year wait 2 years, make sure it's on the tax returns 2 years, then move into it. So just another idea I forgot to throw in there. But yeah, there's so many different things that it can be used for planning for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. It was wonderful. It was a pleasure to have you. And I know we'll be working together in the future.
Excellent. I really appreciate it, Debbie. Thanks so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you. And that's a wrap.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Real Estate with host Debbi DiMaggio. Here Fridays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Tune in to where real estate matters matter.